So I thought I had these solid boundaries, and I did not realize there was these little boundaries or things that I didn't realize were happening because without the human design knowledge, I didn't understand my energetic makeup, right? I couldn't see it. And that's why human design is so helpful as a personal development tool, especially, is because it can show you where your blind spots are going to be. Human design reveals who you are energetically and who you came here to be. I'm Dana, human design specialist.
And I'm Haley, the human design newbie. Listen in as we explore how leaning into your authentic self is your ultimate path to success. Welcome to the Human Design High podcast. Let's get into it.
Hello, Haley. How you doing?
Yeah.
Good to see you. Always smiling. I suppose now that I can see you. And, I'm just going to throw a little shade. I'm going to do it.
Okay, do it.
So it is about 30 minutes past when we started to record because I use a software called Descript, which has recently merged with Squadcast, which is supposed to make it super easy to remote record, which I'm very excited about because when you get the final product, the video is a lot clearer than it is currently here on Zoom. We're not on Squadcast because apparently it does not work on cloudy days.
It's like DirecTV.
DirecTV. I thought this was the internet, not satellite. Because every time we tried to record, I couldn't either hear her, we couldn't see each other. And it was very distracting. We spent literally the last half hour okay, let's try it again. Nope, let's try it again. So now we're back to the tried and true Zoom.
Yes.
It's not the flashiest. It's not the season's latest. It's like your comfortable bathrobe.
But it's pretty stable.
Kinda. We'll see. Now that we've said that, I'll find some wood, knock on wood over here to make sure this doesn't boot us off as well. Anyway, so did you have a good weekend?
Yes, we went camping.
Ah,
yes.
Lucky you.
Yeah, it was cold.
To think what I did.
It was cold.
Oh, I know what I did.
What?
I spent way too much time editing the podcast on Sunday. Because nothing was working right. Oh my gosh. And I'm pretty I think tech savvy. I can even if I don't know how it works right away, I can do some research and figure it out.
That line one comes through.
Watch maybe 300-400 YouTube videos till I finally get it. But this podcast production can be time consuming at times when all the technologies that are supposed to make it easier don't work, which is pretty much the modern life angst. It's how we all feel about everything. Everything's great. And we get so used to things working well for us that when they don't, we're just we're so spoiled because my streaming service isn't working anymore. And I'm we're talking 5 years ago, I had to watch what was ever on cable or something that. I had to record things.
I know.
And now I'm ugh.
Well, that's in the past, I think, month or so, Netflix stopped their DVD section.
They were still doing it.
I know. I was they're still doing that? And then I was I remember when we would have to pick which DVDs we wanted to rent from Netflix.
I can't even remember it.
And they would ship it to you, and then you would have it for a week. And now we have Netflix at our fingertips.
I can't believe you even remember that because I really don't remember that. We used to have a Blockbuster video at the end of the street.
Yep. I remember going to Blockbuster.
Yeah, we did. Because you guys were little. How fast things changed that.
I also remember having to put my little VHS Disney princess movies into the TV. I had the little TV that had it built in.
Aw. Oh yeah, yeah. That was
Mm-hmm.
that was high tech, man. That was
Mm-hmm.
like a small TV
Yeah.
and the VHS included. Like I said, it's crazy. It's no wonder that everybody has like overload. You know, when you think about all the things that are coming at us all the time
Mm-hmm.
from technology, we're just not made for it yet. I mean, I think each new generation that comes in is a little better wired to handle all this like technology, I suppose. But I mean, when you think that, you know, you said, "Oh, I remember I was little, I put a VHS tape into a TV." I'm like, I remember when I was little, you know, it was like I never life before even cable TV. Like I always said, I remember my friend had cable before I did, and the remote was a box that was like I don't know, 12 by 8, had like 30 push down push buttons on it, and it was wired to
Oh my
the,
God.
the console.
And now you have the little Apple TV remote that you lose all the time.
Oh, I know. Oh my God, the fear you have because what I got like a second or third generation Apple TV. They have made the remote heftier now. I've seen it
Oh,
at
good.
Best Buy.
Oh,
It's a
good.
little thicker.
Because that's
It's
half of why Presley doesn't want an Apple TV.
it's about as thick. It's about as thick as this coaster. They're thicker.
Yeah.
And they're not black. So if it happens anytime and you can't find your remote because the damn thing is it's a millimeter thin and black. But every time I go to I'm so like in fear of like accidentally starting something, stopping something, pulling Siri up. I don't know. It's very sensitive.
Mhm.
But it's anyways. I was just going to make another complaint about in this such a modern life issue with the Apple TV remote and all the streaming is I've got Amazon Prime, Netflix, Hulu, AMC Plus, Peacock, got it all, right?
Bravo.
Well, that's in Peacock.
Okay.
I
Uh-huh.
love Peacock's probably one of my favorite apps, but
Mhm.
because of the Bravo. And anyways, there's an inconsistency how the remote works in between each app, like how you
Oh.
fast forward or rewind. Like some you double tap and some you have to like
Ew.
it's not the same. And boy, I get so annoyed by it. And I'm just now thinking like, God, what a really ridiculous problem to worry about
I know.
is that. But I tell you, I love the Housewives.
Yes.
Not all of them, but I love the shows and I love the Below Deck. And I swear to God, every time I watch those shows, I'm like, hey, we need to have a second or third podcast, like just for fun.
Yes.
And I think about how fun it would be to like watch these shows through the lens of human design. If I knew what their designs were, if I could get their birth details of like everybody on there, and I'd be like, oh, that was such a line 3 thing to do right there. I mean, she totally fucked that up, but that's okay because she was meant to.
Oh my God, me and Nancy on a Bravo podcast.
Or be like, why does she keep trying to get so much attention? She's a projector. It's not going to work.
She's not waiting for the invitation.
No wonder they think she's bossy. That'd be fun. I wonder how I could get everybody's birth details. If you're out there listening and you also have such an affinity and there's a need for this in the community, please let me know.
Yes. Because
I love human design. I love all the serious stuff. I love the mystical. I love all stuff, but God, I love some reality TV too. Let me tell you.
It's so trashy, but it's so
good. I don't like it I get a little annoyed by all the fighting sometimes, but those are the ones I generally don't watch, where it's literally just one shit show fight after another. Which I'm sorry, ladies of Salt Lake City, they're getting a little out of hand. So far,
those are the only ones I watch.
I know you don't watch that many, but anyways, but I do watch, I mean, I get very excited and very touched on these shows when people are like exhibiting good behavior and they're
I
having
know.
really good conversations with each other and they're being open and honest with each other. I'm like, whew, I mean, I love some drama, but not in my own life, but sometimes it's such petty nonsense. And I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
but I also love the girls' trips, which is why I also want to do girls' trips. We got to do girls' trips. We got to do some kind of trip. We got to do
Yes.
some kind of human design centered thing. It keeps swirling in
Yes.
my brain.
Yes.
And I'm really digging the idea of it, of a fun retreat, an explorative retreat, a get to know yourself better retreat in somewhere beautiful, right? And Haley really wants to plan one. Like she's got her her project manager glasses on. She really wants to make it happen. So again, if that's something you're interested too, maybe we'll pull a little wait list together for that and figure out where we want to go.
Something fun, but not like real. Sometimes those kinds of retreats can get real like uppity
heavy.
Yeah.
But I think it would be fun. Well, when I think about it, because it's like probably towards not quite the spring, because I like the idea of being around, which is going to segue into some upcoming episodes I have planned about the quarters in the human design year and how that all works. That, everybody looks towards the New Year's, about that being the time when you make all these plans and resolutions, but it's not. I mean, it's totally not. It's really in the first quarter of initiation, they call it. And it spans pretty much from, I can't remember. It's like the end of February, somewhere around there. Like you were born under that quarter through to like beginning of May. Anyway, and that's when things are like, it's all in the mind. And so it'd be a good, plan for the beginning of the year. Or maybe even quarterly retreats. For each quarter.
A little different themes.
Anyways, get in ahead and we'll do some. But as we look at this time of year, we're more focused on a lot of gatherings. The holidays is coming, right?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I was feeling so good about this segue. I just totally, didn't ask you about your trip, but that's okay.
That's all right. We've gone on enough already.
Yeah, we've gone on enough.
We should probably get to the episode.
So yeah, about holiday gatherings and for what happens to a lot of people, not necessarily us, but what happens when you have to maybe be around people you're not normally around. You may have grown up with them. You may have, certain things, issues. And it, not everybody has those issues. I think we could have these issues anywhere. Do we even want to call them issues? I don't know. Experiences.
Yes.
Let's say that. But so we have talked about the centers, what happens when the centers meet, but it got me thinking a little bit more about taking that a little bit, I don't know if it's deeper, but just kind of reframing the context of, what that means. Sorry, I had a little thing go off.
I heard it.
And I have been noticing also amongst people or clients, some things around boundaries with other people. And or just boundaries with themselves. And so when you hear that, when we talk about boundaries, I mean, do people your age, are you setting boundaries? Do you talk about boundaries? Do you guys are you ever cognizant of cross boundaries? Always put you on the spot.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like definitely my generation, we are, especially women, we are, I think, moving to setting more boundaries for ourselves and for others. I think we are becoming more cognizant of it. Like me personally, I do try to set boundaries with work, with my workload. And I mean, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I mean, I hadn't thought about it until we started talking about it, but you're right. I think your generation hopefully are a little bit better about it. You need to be.
Yeah.
But, and I will say that makes sense because a lot of the people I work with are older than you. And there is this issue with setting boundaries, especially as women. And I used to pride myself on thinking I had pretty solid boundaries, but I realize even I have my weak points, and there's definitely been boundaries that have crossed. And so I think a lot, maybe, and this is from my experience, thinking I have solid boundaries or I know where my boundaries are is because we think it's this very solid, set, hard thing. And that it's usually pretty obvious, like you obviously are not going to let someone talk to you that way, or you're obviously not going to. But I have found that it's a little more insidious at times and that it's tricky. So I thought I had these solid boundaries and I did not realize there was these little boundaries or things that I didn't realize were happening because without the human design knowledge, I didn't understand my energetic makeup, right? I couldn't see it. When that's why human design is so helpful as a personal development tool, especially, is because it can show you where your blind spots are going to be and where might that be. One couple places, not one place, but where do you think your blind spots might show up?
Conditioning.
Yes. So where does conditioning predominantly occur?
In undefined centers.
Yes.
I really want to make sure I got it right.
You're like white center. That's what you're thinking.
No, I was just trying to remember if it was defined or undefined.
It's undefined. But well, I mean, there is conditioning all throughout the chart, whether you're, there can be different layers, different types of conditioning based on, your experience, because you can be conditioned in your open center, in your defined centers as well, especially if you're like a manifester who's, a female, woman, growing up that was, may have been conditioned to be less than her full expression because it was uncomfortable for other people. But in this instance, first thing you can look at, and this is what I usually look at with people, is their open centers, which we talked about. The open centers are where you are amplifying that energy of others around you and reflecting it back, but it's where the not self behaviors show up. And that's because the reason they talk about it so much and focus on it so much is it's almost predictable, some of the behaviors, the key not self behaviors in those open centers, because in one form or another, there's this theme that is consistent in the open areas, such as the undefined will center of proving, or the undefined sacral of like pushing too hard, not knowing when enough is enough. Like these are, very consistent behaviors within those open centers. And so when I look at my own chart, and like I said, I thought, I'd done pretty good. I mean, I've certainly, even before human design, had many, where I thought I was being strong. I realized I was not, but I can see it a little bit clearer now of why that might have been. And so boundaries are really these, go ahead.
It's not like a brick wall. It's more of a line in the sand.
Yeah, it's a line in the sand. And I like to say it's a line in the sand because if it's in the sand, it can also move. It's like, like a brick wall.
It can be redrawn.
It's a hard, like, no, this is never going to happen, never going to cross that line again. But then if we're looking at, the whole system, we know that there's that openness for a reason, right? What's the openness there for?
It's to learn.
Because we're in the laboratory of life here. We're learning how other people experience things. And I when you just look back, and I know we've talked about it before, how perfectly just the human existence is designed to come in so helpless, to come in as this baby who knows everything. I mean, a baby really does, like, their soul. They know, right? They know that they are, they know they're everything. We all know this when we come in. We're very close to where we came from, which is everything. and then we come out and everybody starts taking care of us and telling us, one thing, we take care of a baby. There's so much, like, a mother who's very worried about the baby, protecting them or whatever, amplifying these fears. And it's all well intentioned. It's human behavior, but we're all, like, here to learn from that, right? I don't know if I was really expressing that clearly, but just saying that we are
something.
It was something.
It was informative, but I'm not sure.
I think I was just talking.
I think the point fell off, maybe, but
did it?
That's good.
You know what? I appreciate that, because that means that when you tell me the point landed, I can believe you even more now, because you're not just blowing smoke there. You're like,
no.
My point was that because of the openness, and we're here to learn from each other, is like, the whole experience is designed that way. If you talk about boundaries in certain arenas, not arenas, the right
instances?
Word, but certain, yeah, because there will be the I'm treading lightly here. I'm trying not to offend too much, but some of these in these hypersensitive areas where it's like, you cannot let someone do this. You cannot let someone do that. Like you said, there's black and white. Like, this is not cool and this is not cool. And there's no room for growth, right? I'm definitely not one to say you should let yourself be pushed around or abused by anyone. I'm not saying that. But I think that, like you said, that line in the sand, when you can have more fluid boundaries that are informed, I guess, by your own experience, because we're all going to be different. What we feel needs to be a boundary with someone, correct?
Yeah. I think I get what you're saying. Like you said, the fluidity of the boundary, it helps you when you know what your fluid boundary is, it helps you still be yourself, but then you can also interact with the other person, see from the other person's perspective. You can still have that communication and that learning environment, but okay, this is how I am. This is me. This is my boundary, but I can move with it.
Yeah. And also, how else do you know what your boundaries are without going through the experience and learning from it? As long as you're like learning and growing, because, maybe if you set too rigid boundaries, you're kind of cutting yourself off from life experiences. Like, and like I said, I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying that you should just, let everybody walk all over you
wild
until you find your boundary point. That's not it. I know we all instinctually know where these boundaries start, because, we can see it in our design. Our starting point with our boundaries, I think, is with our definition as far as where we're defined. Because where we are defined, right? Yeah. Why does it make sense?
Where you're defined is where you have like your consistent energy. So you know what is you and what feels right.
And yeah, so exactly. And it's clearly true. That is you. That is your boundary. And you know that this is, where you're affecting people as well. But yeah, that's your design. This is when you came into this existence that you and the universe said, okay, you're going to go in like this. Okay, so there's your definition. I just lost my train of thought. I was on a roll there. We were on a roll. We were doing good.
Yeah.
So, about the experience. I think we were talking about the experience.
You're talking about where boundaries start.
Starting point. Right. Okay. Of knowing that's where you start. So this is where learning about your design becomes helpful. Because if you can have this visual, I mean, if you imagine when we talk about boundaries, you said this imaginary line in the sand, or it's this imaginary, point that's not crossing, it kind of helps you see where your more vulnerable spots could be. And so, if you're younger like you, it definitely gives you a heads up and a head start as far as realizing when you're kind of maybe getting into quote unquote dangerous territory with someone, because you are aware that there are certain parts, especially in your design, you have a lot of openness in your design. I think through knowing your design, it's helped you create or strengthen, I should say strengthen maybe some boundaries that you may have already, since you are a projector and a line 6, you may have always instinctively felt this, or a line 2, around emotionality and stuff. So like, and I don't know, we've talked about before, but were you aware before the human design knowledge, were you aware of your own emotional state and other people's emotional states? Or did you
honestly, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Like, I think I would just, if I felt emotions, regardless on like who I was around, like, I think I would just always think it was me. Like, I wasn't necessarily aware that this may not be my emotion. This may be someone else's that I'm picking up.
Okay. That's good to know. So, but now you have that checkpoint to be like, wait a minute. I was fine 5 minutes ago, and now I feel like crying. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
I mean, could have been some of those damn videos online, but I meant animal videos.
Yes.
Plenty of sad things online. But anyways, so boundaries, they allow you to be true to yourself. You've got to know what is you and what is someone else. And, when you look into boundary work, they'll talk about a lot of separateness, separating yourself from others, keeping yourself separate, knowing yourself separate. And I don't really think that's the right way to go either, like we were saying, of being completely separate, because we can't be completely separate.
Right.
We have to, interact with each other. So,
I mean, if we were supposed to be separate, I would think everyone would come in with all of their centers defined.
Yeah, maybe, right?
Sounds like
some do, but not a whole lot of us. But so some different types of boundary challenges, let's call it. Every time I use the word issue, I'm like, I don't want to use the issue. It has such a negative connotation to it. Like, it's when you say to me, when I say somebody has issues, it makes it feel like it's something they have no control over, like that's your issue. But these are challenges. These are learning points, things we could get through. And so there's so many things in the chart that could tell you where you could be affected and where you might need to draw clear boundaries. But I think there's really some like top highlights that we can look at just as we look at, these gatherings that we're getting into, or, like I said, maybe you're going back home for the holidays and you always feel certain ways or triggers, or, know that, or maybe you struggled with a boundary with someone. If you could look at your chart and see if maybe something like this is coming into play, how to handle that and how to deal with that. So, the big ones are really, it's really interesting. They're in the awareness centers, because if you think about, the splenic awareness, mental awareness, and emotional awareness. And I, for one, I don't pay too much the mental awareness, like on a day-to-day, like, sure.
The mental awareness is specifically the ajna?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. That's like your mental processing and stuff.
Right.
But, somebody asked me, like, well, what do you look at when you look at the chart? I always look at people's definition. The first thing's like your type. And then, especially if I see someone because I have had people that are struggling with certain boundaries, like in families or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
First thing I look at is their type, which honestly, sacral, non-sacral, that's like a big one right
Mm-hmm.
there. Because as you know, sacral types and non-sacral types operate very differently, yet
Mm-hmm.
there's predominantly on the planet more sacrals. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's this conditioned response there to feel like a generator all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So your type, first of all, can, if you're new to human design and you're not real familiar with your type, you could look there first in your interactions with people and see if maybe you're not acting according to your type has created some boundary issues in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, I have some blind spots, and the boundaries for me currently, we know, and one of them is in a work situation that I
Mm-hmm.
have, part-time work that I have,
Yep.
that it's not that anybody has crossed a boundary, like my boss, nothing like that. It's just I am not honoring my own boundaries as a
Mm-hmm.
generator.
Yeah.
What would that be for me? That would be I did not know human design as well when I first started working.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd heard of it, but I was not following it at all.
Right.
Not experimenting at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I had, I may have taken more time before I decided to work there because I'm
Mm-hmm.
emotional. But also now that I entered into it, it's way longer than I realized the other day. I've worked there longer than I've ever worked for anybody else.
Yeah.
Like, that's weird to me. I was like, I've been there almost 5 years. I have been there 5 years. And I look back at my work history and I was like, I don't think I've ever worked anywhere more than 3 years for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing? So I've crossed my own boundary, but at the same time, and when I say I've crossed my own boundary, not the amount of years or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying.
You entered into it across your boundary.
Well, I entered into it. I wasn't knowing about the sacral yes, no, anything. It was literally like, this person needs help. I could use some extra money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then there's been increasingly over the years more and more like evidence. And now I'm in full blown, I know what these are. This is a sacral no, I'm still taking it day by day, but I know that I'm not lit up by this work.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. I can do it. And this is a common cross boundary for most generators out there is not honoring your own energy boundary, basically, because we can do it.
Mm-hmm.
We will do it, but it will
should.
deplete us. Yeah, it doesn't mean we should. It will deplete us. And it's not honoring my own, what lights me up. So I'm now realizing that is a boundary that I am having to clean up, and I'm going to have to really deal with and draw that new line in the sand. And I've slowly been doing that, but it's coming. So you said earlier before we got on or maybe we were. It was on
the call.
Our life on and off the call. I don't know. As a projector, you've realized that you can set some boundaries around your time, correct?
Yep. I very much tried to honor that. And like, even with my time that I spend after work, I am focusing more on not necessarily what Presley, the generator, wants to do, and more of what I want to do if I just need to relax or if I want to do something creative. Like, I'm getting better at honoring that for myself.
Yeah. And it's not that you had to say anything to him like, I will not do anything with you after a certain time. This is a hard boundary I'm setting. It's just like, no, it's okay. Because you are learning what you need and how that in turn, by you setting that boundary, actually enriches the relationship. It doesn't take anything away from it, right?
No. Yeah, it improves it.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of everything here. It's like, if we can honor these boundaries about what's right for us, then, it benefits, most people that care for your well-being. I mean, there's going to be people in your life that you're going to set boundaries with. They're not going to like it, but that's too bad. That's their problem.
They also have some boundaries they need to work on.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's, type, looking at your type, sacral, non-sacral. First of all, how you use your time, you're using your energy in that regard is a good place to start, really.
Mhm.
If you're looking at, as you're starting to navigate your relationships through this new lens of human design, where am I maybe acting against my type? Maybe where am I acting against my strategy? And then authority is another one there.
Mhm.
Like I was saying about how I entered into that situation, I did not know about emotional authority and that I was not supposed to make decisions quickly. I, often made decisions based on what other people wanted instead of what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
And depending on your authority, are you honoring your authority, or are even in the reverse? I see people who are splenic like you that spend too much time making decisions. Doesn't mean you can't talk it out, especially if you're a projector, but in the moment awareness of what feels right for you. If you're splenic, if you're strictly splenic authority, it's how your body feels. It's never going to be what anybody else tells you to do. It's always going to be if your body feels safe, feels comfortable, feels like this is a good use, then, it'll steer you in that direction.
Mhm.
So since we're talking about splenic there, let's just also go on to, because I think, we kind of know, follow your strategy, your authority for your type. That's the first way to help set boundaries of what's appropriate for you. So if you have these awareness centers open, one or all three of them, or just two of them, it's good to kind of look at the spleen, the ajna, the solar plexus, because you're designed to be wise in these areas, and there's a lot of information there, especially with others. However, these are also areas where it's very easy to get really overwhelmed by other people, let's say.
Okay.
Because if you look at the spleen center, we talked about how that's, your safety, your security, your well-being, your instincts, all that stuff, your survival. If you have an undefined spleen, there can be a sense of lack of security or vulnerability to the world, and you have all these heightened experiences of other people's defined spleens, let's say, as far as certain fears or whatever goes. But what really happens here is when the defined and the undefined spleen meet, which they're very attractive to each other, because those defined spleen people feel really good and comfortable and safe to the undefined spleen. Now, strictly energetics, as we talked about, nobody is really cognizant that it's happening. But at that energetic level, the security that the energetic system feels from that defined spleen is very, very attractive. And it's very hard to break that bond because, man, this isn't, anything other than your animal instinct, our most primal instinct of who to bond with to be secure, right?
Right.
So, as we've said before, this is where codependency happens a lot. And potentially, unfortunately, very abusive relationships emotionally abusive, or, can live in this dynamic because the undefined spleen has a very hard time letting go of stuff, people, situations, because it feels good. It feels safe and comfortable. I think we established that. How many times did I say that? So that's something to be aware of there. If you know that about yourself and you have found that, in certain friend groups or in the family groups or whatever, that this person is not good to be around, not good for you. Like your mind knows it. All your friends tell you that, whatever, but you just can't let go. Well, maybe you should look at the dynamics and also make sure that they have a defined spleen and know that it's just an energy that you're feeling. It's not a hard truth that you can, because what we say about the fears and the spleen is that these are fears that can be like worked through, pushed through. And if it's this like afraid of losing that security, even if it's afraid of, a lot of people are hoarders, are afraid to get rid of those things because it makes them feel safe. This is the same kind of behavior, that it can be very deep to them. But if they can be gently led through that, they can see that it's not as bad as they thought it was going to be.
Right.
And so, checking in with yourself and seeing if, there is a boundary that needs to be set with people if you have an open spleen, or maybe you have a hoarding boundary. Maybe you need to let go of some stuff. You need to honor that boundary there. Maybe that would be a good place to look. Now, if you go up to the ajna, the mental awareness, pointing.
When you go up.
So, people with defined ajnas are, fixed in their thinking, and they can be very certain in the way they think. They may not be right, but they certainly think they're right. Speak for myself.
Me?
I think about it all the time because, I'm like, well, I'm not fit. I have knowingness. So I'm just supposed to it's not me. I'm not fixed in my thinking. But then I also have gate 4, which is logic. And I realized that, and my Chiron, I think, is 17, which comes off the ajna, that if I look back, yes, I usually try to, at least I'm very certain about certain things, always trying to have the answer. And I think I know, and I've gotten better about it. I'm not so, not so aggressive with my thoughts,
or I'll just be quick to say something, and I'm like, and then I dig my heels in it, like when we drove out here, and we changed the time so quickly.
Yeah,
it's so bad. It gets me in so much trouble, causes so much strife.
And you do. That's right. That's a good example. Haley is like, she will die on that hill sometimes of like, nope, I know what I'm talking about.
Even if I know it's wrong, I'm like, nope, I can't go back.
Usually wear down over time. You're not so obstinate.
Yeah.
You'll let me know later. You did let me know a little later on that you were wrong about that. But at first you're like, I am not wrong. I know what I'm doing.
Nope.
So, as such, you can imagine that if you have undefined ajna, especially undefined ajna and head, you can be very susceptible to the thoughts of others and their certainty, because the ajna struggles with wanting to be certain, wanting to know. They don't like to appear that they don't know. It's a 100%. Soft spot for them. Yeah, it's a soft spot for them to feel like they're not consistent in their thoughts. Like they don't have a fixed thought, and they, because they can see everything and they're open-minded. And so they could certainly be influenced by defined ajnas, and it's dangerous territory. And I think, we can see that in our modern world of, it's really tragic and sad how much people are looking for certainty in this world, because there's a lot more undefined ajnas than, defined, especially that head and ajna combination, people looking for certainty. And unfortunately, you can find it anywhere. Like there's, if there are very persuasive people that, I'm not saying they're all people with defined heads that are spreading all kinds of disinformation, but it's certainly there, and it's very, very treacherous. So if you want to make sure that if you have an open or undefined ajna, that you need to do a little more questioning about, especially if you're making decisions based on what someone else thinks, right? Because when the mind does not make decisions, your own mind should not, for sure. But if you're basing your decision making or your beliefs based on what someone else thinks, and are not taking the time to be with yourself, think to yourself, write it out. What is it be out of contact with some of these people? What is it you really think? Is it right for you? And especially if you don't know human design, or you're just learning new, you're finding that, there could have been a lot of decisions you've made in your life based on what other people think. And Well, hello, conditioning. We all do that
Yeah.
to a certain point.
Yeah.
I mean, we all do that. And I mean, I remember, when you were younger and you didn't really know, you're still working on it, what direction to go. And uh, I didn't really have a plan for you, but I wanted to make sure that you were going to make these decisions. You can only give your kids so much guidance, but then you do have to like step back a little bit and let them, formulate, think, not make decisions from the mind, but it's very tricky that way. So ajna is definitely a place to check if you have an open ajna, who is informing what you think. And then of course the emotional solar plexus, this is a really big one, especially if it's undefined and you have, gates in that center. There's going to be certain triggers for you. There's going to be certain themes for you. But this dynamic, especially in families, can, give people, it can create a lot of issues in a family. I think all of these can, but more often than not, I think this is a big one because there's a good chance that, in any group, there's going to be defined and undefined emotional.
Because it's 50-50 in the population, roughly,
yeah,
right?
it's 50-50. And, depending on if you are open in that area, if you're undefined in that area, you could be making decisions for yourself based on how other people feel about it because you don't want to upset them or you want to make them happy. So you might cross your own boundaries with yourself of what you really want in order to, make someone else happy. And so where that else could get you in trouble is if you're not an emotionally defined person, you also don't have an emotional wave and the other person does. And so if you're always like trying to keep up with their wave and follow their moods to base, your interactions with them or how you handle things or how you proceed in life based on that person's mood, well, it's a losing game. You can't win. You got to learn to not ride the wave with them. Like you can get in there, but you don't have to like go along because basically you're not here to do that. You're here to observe and see how it moves and how it works, but you're not supposed to be the person in there doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I know that we talk about our own family dynamic. We know that you're the only one that's emotionally undefined. But I wonder about, and we know Presley's not defined, but I wonder if, well, I guess you didn't know their definition. I just wonder if there's other people in your life that you have felt some of these tendencies in yourself to, maybe not now, maybe in the past, to have maybe gone along or tried to appease that, you didn't feel like it. Because really the whole thing here is, if you're talking about the realm of feelings and emotions, you've got to really understand your own feelings and emotions about things. And if you feel like doing something. So, no. No.
Well, I'm trying to think of in the past, which I can't think of anything. And then the only people I interact with nowadays is Presley and you guys when I come home to visit.
You gotta get out. You gotta get out there and have some people challenge your boundaries.
We are going to play golf with the couple we met on Saturday. So,
oh, good. You met them on Saturday.
No, we met them and played golf with them previously.
Oh,
we're playing again with them on Saturday.
Good.
Yes.
Get their birth information while you're out there. If you feel triggered, say, excuse me.
Can you please control your emotional wave? She's like, what?
Oh gosh. Okay. So those are some big ones there, those 3 awareness centers. And one I also forgot to talk about. I mean, really, go back and listen to the last episode we did about the
Yes.
open and what happens.
Mhm.
But, the root center is another one. I think if you have an undefined root center, you've been maybe looking at human design a little bit, this one you can be more aware of the pressure that's always there. It was certainly an eye-opener to me when I first learned about my open root center and this pressure feeling. The more I started to pay attention to it when I was around other people, I would notice it. And there's that pressure again, the time boundaries that you might have, or I guess it's a time boundary for yourself, but also it's like there's a tendency with an open root, since you're taking in, amplifying, and reflecting back. This is adrenalized energy. This is the energy to do, to create, to like act, not create, but to act, right? Because it's, pulsive energy. And so this is another boundary at work, that I realized that I do want to, get things done. I'll just keep working through it. I have that energy of the sacral that is, being exhausted by the open root sometimes, because I'm always doing all the things. And I will just say yes to one more thing just so I can get it done, so I can get out of there. And then I leave and I'm like, and then I come home and I'm by myself and I'm like, what do I have to do? I have like the pressure just like leaves sometimes. My open head and root get home and we're like, well, when I am I'll tell you, it's crazy. When I am at work or I'm somewhere else, whenever I'm anywhere but here by myself, I can I get out in the world. I have all this thoughts coming in, all the inspiration. I have ideas are coming in and I think, oh, I can get X, Y, and Z done. I can see myself at home being so productive. And then I get home and I'm just like, well, okay.
I don't really want to do that.
Remember you asked me the other day if it was your open head or your defined head that like, I want to sit next to you. Sometimes I think it's that root, because it's like, with both of them, I'm like, maybe I can get some, or at least I feel like I can get something done. But you realize I never really get as much done anyhow. I'm just kind of like pressure.
You're like, I'll look at this, and then I end up looking at this, and then I look at this.
Go do something else. Apparently, I get nothing done, which is why I'm so proud of always having this podcast done every week. At least I get something done. But there is a tendency with people with open roots, we have an issue with really understanding ourselves how much time it could take to do something, because we're always in a rush. We'll rush things. And so I say people that have defined roots can procrastinate a little bit more because you have a better sense of timing of how long it will actually take to get something done.
Yeah.
And you've experienced it within yourself. Mine is so variable because it's completely open. So I should not procrastinate because I can keep putting it off because I don't have the energy for it. I don't want to do it. I don't have the energy for it. The pulse isn't there. And then I might get around it and then I'll be rushing to get something done. And then I put it aside. And so this cycle of rushing and everything else is taxing to the adrenal system. And so it's very easy to burn yourself out with that open root. And so that kind of boundary might look like, it's not that you're going to create boundaries with other people because they're not doing anything to you. They're not, really pressuring you. You're putting the pressure on yourself, or the pressure is felt yourself. It's more of giving yourself a little more time and space to learn your boundaries, I guess, in the sense of how long it does take you to do something, or chunking it down, like not like honoring the way you're going to do things. If you know you have an open root and you have something you have to work on to break that cycle, create a new boundary within yourself of, I'll just wing it. No, you can't just wing it. If it's something important and you got to get it done, maybe chunking it down
little pieces at a time.
Yeah. Helping yourself out there. Yeah. But in a gathering setting with other people, just being aware that if you're open, more than likely or not, there's going to be pressure on you to like get things done and rush. And maybe you've always felt that around your family and you felt like they are pressuring you all the time to just do something, or get something done or whatever, just realize that maybe it's not that. Maybe, a lot of people, defined roots, they don't know like I said, they don't know they're putting pressure on you. They might love you unconditionally, but you feel around them pressured. And so maybe it's not them. Maybe it is you.
That's how I feel as a projector around generators.
Oh yeah.
You feel like the pressure, like I have to be doing something all the time.
Yeah. So the point of all this really is, like I said, we could keep going on and on and on, and I do tend to go on, but really the idea is that, you are only responsible for yourself, and you can only really manage yourself. You can't make other people do things. You can't really change other people. You can only, change yourself. And where this used to be a lot harder to figure out, and a lot more like tendency to point at the other person and say it's their fault. They're the ones doing this to me. It's XYZ. This is why, my whole life or whatever. But when you have this human design knowledge and you can see your part in it, I mean, I think it's empowering. It's more like, it's not that you can look at it and be like, oh, well, I'm so open, I have no hope. It's not that. It's like, it's very empowering to realize that you can look at yourself and know that you're vulnerable in this certain area to certain not self behaviors. But you can, awareness is the key for everything.
Yeah.
To change anything is to just see it in the first place.
When you can see your chart and see what's you, you're able to take back some control. Like, you're able to take back some power, because like, okay, this is me. This is how I'm supposed to be. I can't control the other person, like you said. So I can control me. Then it helps.
Well, especially like I think about, the open will center, undefined will center. The first thing you hear about that and the not self behaviors is, this trying to prove and everything. But when they said you have no willpower, when I first heard that, I was like, oh, well, that doesn't sound great. You have no willpower. But now I see that it really is valuable information to have, because I can now understand, especially because really, when you're in these not self behaviors, deep down, there's something within you that knows it's not right. That's why you're not happy with it. Because it's not you being self. You're going to meet more resistance. You're not in alignment.
It's going to feel kind of uncomfortable deep down.
Yeah, if you're identifying with those behaviors. And so now I can see, like, if I'm getting irritated, something's placed on me or whatever, I can look at my design. I don't have to look at it. I just, experience it and be like, oh, look at me. I'm trying to prove something here. I'm trying to look like a good person, or I'm trying to, prove that I'm enough for this, or prove that I'm enough for that. And know that that's just not true, and I can adjust and, create these new boundaries with myself and with other people. And so I just think it's a helpful thing to look at it in this way in your relationships or in your work. Are you acting out of your not self behaviors, or out of, who you really are? And if you don't want to have to take the big exploration through your chart, you're saying, I ain't got time for that, whatever, it's fine. Know that if you at least stick with what's appropriate for your type and strategy, that's what they always say in human design. Everything comes back to your type and strategy and authority, I should say, because type and strategy are interlinked. So strategy and authority. If you just act from that place of what's appropriate for you as a generator, or a manifester, or a projector, or a reflector, or manifesting generator, a lot of this will start to kind of work its way out on its own, because that's what strategy is for. and authority is for, is to help guide you in that way to what is going to be most aligned for you. Because like if you're a generator and if you just start following and honoring the sacral response, if you're a pure generator, that's your main decision. If you're not, you've got to take some more time. But if you just start responding to what's in front of you in the moment, what do you want to do? Yes or no? That's going to help break some of these not self behaviors just in that instance, or at least bring awareness to it that you can tend to at your own pace.
Yeah.
So hope that was helpful.
Yeah. Strategy and authority. It's like the big brush strokes instead of like the fine little details.
Yeah. Yeah. It is the big brush stroke, but it is the first thing they teach you, because it's the first actionable thing you can actually experiment with. Is just like, recognize your own worth as a projector, wait for the invitation. Manifestors. I was thinking about boundaries and manifestors because they talk about how there's like such a repelling aura and everything, but there's enough there as far as letting other people know your boundaries on your time and everything, informing them of your boundaries. You might be a little more aware of them as you explore your manifestor niche. And so, your boundary, I guess, is going to be tied to your strategy for your type as well. So anyways, I can go on, and I tend to. So I'll just wrap it up there as far as today's episode. So since we wrapped that up, you know what time it is?
Incarnation cross of the week.
Okay.
Halfway through me saying incarnation, I started thinking of carnation breakfast. So I was like, okay, focus.
All right. So we're going to have full transparency here on the podcast. All right.
Yes.
So Haley has requested to hear her own cross because she has enjoyed hearing everybody else's crosses. So she's like, can you do mine? So we are going to do Haley's cross today, which is the left angle cross of dominion.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And so this is putting the conscious sun in gate 63, conscious earth 64, unconscious sun gate 26, and then earth 45. So it's 63 is doubt, 64 is confusion, 26 it's called the egoist, and 45 gatherer. These are all the traditional terms. So here's the
first three sound like a little bit of chaos.
a little bit. Okay. Are you ready? Okay. Since you were born under this cross, your life path revolves around taking control of situations, using your skills to make positive changes, and demonstrating to others the importance of having the right tools and knowledge to achieve success. Additionally, you lead and inspire others by nurturing a sense of curiosity and wonder. You recognize that these qualities are essential for fostering a mindset that embraces inclusive thinking on a universal level. You also teach the value of self-worth and the importance of maintaining well-being, which allows individuals to be open to new ideas and information that can transform the world. By understanding the power of collaboration and embracing your unique role in the cosmic plan, you can harmonize with divine intelligence and fulfill your higher purpose.
I want to put that on my wall.
Maybe we just thought of something.
I had the thought mid-sentence there from you.
So you said I would have to. You don't. Do you resonate with that? How do you feel about that? You said you want to put it on your wall, but you're like, then you'll have to tell me if you see it.
Well, I mean, I can see a little bit like I do like to take control of the situations, but like the whole like showing people their self-worth and some of it I did resonate with, but it is also just difficult for me to see myself a lot of times.
Of course. And just remember that you're line 6, and this is something that you're learning. These energies, they're there and they're present in you, and maybe you don't see them. You don't always resonate with them, but other people, like, the energy is there, and so whether or not you are understanding it, other people are going to see it more in you, obviously, like you just said. But also, the more that you learn about your design, but more importantly, experiment, run your own experiment with, following, like we were talking about earlier, your strategy and authority, and honoring that, this expression of your cross is going to become stronger because you are living more aligned, and that is happening. And like I said, what is the part about the self-worth, value of self-worth and maintaining well-being? Let me tell you, this cross is alive in you. Even when you were very young. There is my favorite story of realizing Haley's little projectorness when she was just a wee lass, very young, in the backseat of the car with my friend and I, and who was going through a difficult time with her family and a lot of obligations being put upon her. And this little, God, you were so young. I don't remember, 4 or 5, little 6. I don't know. You were young. Voice popped up. You said her name. I don't want to say her now. I want to call her out. But she's just like, they just need to let you live your life. And we both turned around and like, well, that is very good advice from that little person in the back. They just got to let you live your life. You can't be carrying on with them all the time. You were listening. You knew what was needed. But that was all about the value of self-worth and the importance of maintaining well-being, because she was really stressed out and feeling not very valued. So it's there. It's there.
Yeah.
And anyone else who's born under this cross is there. All right. We're going to wrap it up, Haley. And as always, we appreciate you here. And if you want any help with maybe looking at your own chart with another set of eyes, so to speak, and need some help and direction of where maybe your blind spots are, you just can't put it together, because sometimes, we can hear all this. I know I certainly can. You can hear it, but then you can get lost in your own chart. And if you just want some help with that, of course, you can book a reading with me. Or I also have the recorded readings. These are certain things where if you have a couple questions and you don't require that one-to-one time, which I prefer because it's easier to have a conversation about your design. But if you want things answered, I also have a recorded reading on the website. You can check that out as well. And so we'll just leave it at that. And you have any final thoughts, Haley?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
You should take that as a good sign.
I do. Okay. So with that, I will bid you adieu, my dear. Until next time. Bye.
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 I said good day.
I said good day. You made it all the way to the end of today's episode, so you must have liked what you heard. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and perhaps leave us a good review. And if you know someone who wants to dig into all things human design with us, make sure you share the Human Design Hive podcast with them. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for listening.